Welcome, everyone. I can see folks starting to join us, so I'm going to start introducing today. Thank you so much for being here, for joining us for Dendrofemonology, a feminist history written in tree rings, with the wonderful Tiffany Shlain. My name is Georgina Gorman, and I'm the Executive Director of TreeSisters. And I want to start by welcoming you all here today. I'm so grateful so many of you could be here with us live. And I'd love to start by welcoming you into the space and just inviting you all to share your name and where you're joining us from. You should be able to do that in the chat in the Zoom box. So we know from the list of who'd signed up that a lot of you may already know who Tree Sisters are and would probably already call yourself Tree Sisters. So welcome to you. But I'd also like to take a moment to welcome everyone who is completely new to us and our work, because we're also expecting some folks who are completely fresh to us today. So welcome and thank you so much for being here. And I'm going to try and summarize Tree Sisters if you haven't heard of us before, which is always quite a mission because we are quite a multifaceted organisation. So I will do my best to quickly introduce us and our work. So Tree Sisters is a movement. We are encouraging everyone to live differently with nature. Now, in the systems that we're in, particularly in the global north, we're so indoctrinated to see ourselves as separate from nature, and we're also bought into the belief that we are consumers, that we're born to take, and even more so to buy. And we just cannot continue to live in ways that treat nature as a resource to be used and used infinitely. We instead need to remind ourselves that we are nature. So we as humans are a part of nature, not apart from it. And our work starts from that fundamental belief that if we all reconnect to nature, if we relearn to see her beauty and the moments of awe that we so often miss or take for granted, and if we open our eyes to the negative impact that we have as humans by taking from her, we'll instead choose to care for her, and we can act with awareness and understanding and reciprocity by giving back as much as we take. And that we can also stand up together to change those systems which lead us to believe those incorrect things about our relationship with nature. Now, we don't just aim to change hearts and minds, that's a big part of it, but we're not just doing that. We are also actively supporting the legal rights of nature movement. We are collaborating with Indigenous groups to promote the ethical principles of living in harmony with nature. And the thing that you probably most know us for, or may have heard of us before about, last but definitely not least, we support local communities around the globe to reforest their land in a way that's ethical and women-led. And together we've already planted over 28.5 million trees, which is quite a lot in over a decade, but there is so much more work to be done. And so many of those systems that I've mentioned that encourage us to treat nature as a commodity are also those same systems responsible for breeding inequity. And part of the reason that we are tree sisters is that women are both the ones impacted the most by climate change alongside children. And they're also the holders of knowledge and ways of being and ways of collaborating and communicating that can help to protect the environment and can change our society for the better. So, our mission has always stood for systemic change and using our voice and connections and influence to push for that change and to spotlight another way of being. So, becoming a tree sister is all of these things and more. And it is so much more than planting trees, which is why I left reforestation to the end there, but it is such an important part of what we do. But becoming a tree sister is believing that there is a better way of living on this planet and taking real steps to rebuild our relationship with the earth and with each other. So I'm so honoured to be here by so many folks. I can see folks joining in the chat from all around, from Canada, from Vancouver, from Portugal. Amazing. Lots of folks joining. Thank you so much for sharing where you're joining us from. I'm honoured that you've chosen to spend your time with us. And you know, there is so much negativity in the world. There's so many pockets of evil and disparity and unfairness and all of violence and all of these awful things, it is very easy to feel alone and outnumbered and sometimes to feel powerless. But moments like this are a great reminder of the power of community and that we can spend this time together with so many others who have all joined because we care about the same things. So, thank you so much for being here with us today. And then my next thanks goes to Tiffany Shlain. We are so grateful for you, for having you with us here today, for your time here today. Tree Sisters has been a big fan of Tiffany for a very long time, and I am so excited to be here with you today and to speak with you in person. I know you're mid-exhibition and your tour and so many talks. And yeah, I'm so appreciative of you taking this time to be with us and with our community here as well. So I'm going to read my notes to introduce you, Tiffany, because there are so many awards and accolades and achievements that even with a list, I will not do you justice.
You
So
don't
bear
have to
with
read
me.
all of them. Okay.
I'll read a subset. There are
Okay,
plenty
okay,
more I'm not going to mention, which is incredible
okay.
in itself. So for those of you who are new to Tiffany, she is an incredible multidisciplinary artist, Emmy-nominated filmmaker, national best-selling author, the founder of the Webby Awards. You've been honored by Newsweek as one of the women shaping the 21st century. Her work has been shown at the Museum of Modern Art, the Guggenheim Museums in New York, the Sundance Film Festival, US embassies globally. Your films have received over 65 awards. She's done TED Talks. Her films and talks have been viewed over 50 million times, which is absolutely incredible. The awareness and inspiration that you've had is just unmarked and unmeasurable and continues to be. So your sculpture, Dendrofemonology, a feminist history tree ring, we're going to talk about today, was installed on the National Mall in Washington, D.C., and was also in Madison Square Park in NYC. I'm not going to talk too much more about that because I know we're going to talk lots about Dendrofemonology today. But also should mention your solo exhibition, You Are Here at Nancy Hoffman Gallery in New York, was selected by both ArtNet and Art Forum on their must-see gallery shows list. And your critically acclaimed joint exhibition with Ken Goldberg called Ancient Wisdom for a Future Ecology, Trees, Time and Technology is now open at the DeRosa Center for Contemporary Art in San Francisco. And you're busy with a tour and talks around all of that at the moment. Take a breath. Amazing. So, if I could summarize, your work has threads of feminism, philosophy, technology, neuroscience, and nature. So you can see the connections, and everyone can see the connections today around why Tree Sisters and Tiffany, what's brought us together. We are so grateful to you, Tiffany, for your support of our work at Tree Sisters, but also for being such an incredible powerhouse for the rights of women and nature. For me, your work just shines such a brilliant spotlight on the stories that we tell ourselves in the systems that we're in and how we can question those prominent narratives and dig a little deeper and just question our own ways of thinking and what we might take for granted as fact. Particularly dendrofemonology, which we'll get onto, has been eye-opening for so many people to question the standard patriarchal colonist interpretation and retelling of our history and our world, and to show how a different feminist retelling of history might look like. So, before I say any more, we should start by Tiffany. I'll hand the floor to you. Please introduce us to your work. You might want to talk about
Yeah.
the concept of dendrofemonology. I would just love to hear from you. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, that was such a beautiful intro. And I have to say, I'm getting all choked up even just seeing people where everyone's from. I think there's so many kind of fears around technology and AI and destruction, but the truth is the fact that I'm speaking with you and Tree Sisters, which is an organization that I've admired from California, and you're in England, and we
Mhm.
decided to do this together, and there are women and people from all over the world zooming in, like gives me profound hope that just as much, and I always feel this way, technology is just an extension of us, and it's good, bad, and everything in between. And this is the good. This is the good part that we are on a Zoom and people all over the world are joining in. So I'm so grateful to be here. This is actually just one of the beauties of modern society. I know we're going to talk about their countering a lot of the negative parts, but this is the beauty of it, that women from all over the world can be, and all over our country. I see a lot of people from the United States too, which is great. Any Californians here? I don't think there's any Californians. I'm representing California, but anyways, oh, Monterey, California. Hi, Elizabeth. Okay. Anyways, so I think it would be good. I'm going to give a brief overview, like a very quick overview of my career, which led I think all led me. Oh my God, here from San Francisco. Okay, I have a local. Sorry, I'm just like I have a lot of Northern California.
And
I have
Northern
to say, like,
California, they're all
well,
here
we
for
are
you, Tiffany.
deeply in the trees here. I'll just say one line, which I always love this fact. So I live right near Muir Woods, and those of you that have never been here, it's like the seventh wonder of the world. It is, filled with redwood trees, some of the oldest trees in the world. And the interesting fact about California, which is like so appropriate, I'm doing this work. I said I grew up near the oldest trees in the world, and we in California we have these microclimates. So we have the oldest trees, the tallest, and the widest trees. So I feel like I have been raised by the trees, and I am gonna now share my screen to give you a little bit of background. Oopsie. I'm going to the top here, pressing play. Can you all see the redwoods, near woods? Are you seeing the screen all of a sudden? Okay. So this is, my family and I would go to the Muir Woods, these redwoods, which were like a cathedral. And it's actually where one of our presidents started before the United Nations was officially started, he brought everyone to the Cathedral of the Redwoods to be grounded in nature, which I always find really beautiful. So I had a career where I was a filmmaker. I worked in technology to pay for a lot of my films, and I ended up founding the Webby Awards in my 20s. That's a long story. I don't have time to get into it, but I always believed, well, actually, what I was just saying, the power of technology. I very early on, before the web existed, in high school in the 80s, I'm 55. So in the 80s, the web didn't exist, but I wrote about the potential of the web existing, and kind of like what we're doing right now, the potential of people all over the world coming together over a shared interest like TreeSisters. That's exactly what I wrote about, but the web didn't exist yet. And then I made films and I worked in technology to pay for my films. And then when the web first started in the early 90s, I was like, this is what I was writing about in high school. It's going to change the world. I founded the Webby Awards and I honored the best of the web. This is from one of my shows. I did these big theatrical productions with film and performers that I felt like, honor this new medium in a new way. I eventually, after a decade, sold the Webby Awards and went back to filmmaking. And I made documentaries about nature and technology. I made a film called Connected. When you were doing your intro, we're not separate from nature. We need to stop extracting. We are nature. That's pretty much one of my whole films called Connected that premiered at Sundance in 2011. So I made all these documentaries about nature, technology, neuroscience, and feminism. This is actually an animation I made from one of my movies years ago. So I was always kind of exploring this tension that just as trees are connected, the internet was building this connection all over the world, which is beautiful. And how do we use it for good and not bad? So that has been a strong theme in my work, as well as I also, about 17 years ago, my family and I started turning off technology one day a week. I'm Jewish. We do, not religious, but we do a tradition called Shabbat, and we would turn off the screens and usually go into the trees, into nature. And I saw how much my brain changed in nature, so I made a lot of films about that too. I eventually wrote this book called 24/6. If anyone's interested in trying to rekindle one of the oldest traditions, which is taking a complete day off one day a week. In my family, that means turning off screens. Just like yoga and meditation are these ancient ideas that everyone can participate in. I wrote this book so everyone could engage with this idea of turning off screens one day a week. I eventually did a performance about technology and nature, and then COVID happened, the whole world shut down, and once again, I was like in the trees. We got a dog. I don't know how many of you got a dog during COVID. We started spending even more time in the trees. And I was back to my childhood space of looking at these trees and thinking, what had they witnessed? And I thought, had they witnessed a pandemic? It helped me give perspective. Like, and then I started thinking back to, um, my father wrote a lot about goddess culture, an unusual thing. Both my parents feminists, but my dad, he asked a big question in one of his books was, why was it that in every ancient civilization, goddesses were worshipped? Goddesses were worshipped, and nature usually. And what was the single event that kept happening that turned goddess worship, the sex of God, from a female to a man, and it became a patriarchal society? And he wrote this book called The Alphabet versus the Goddess. So that was like what I was raised on. Women are all powerful, women, nature, goddesses, and my mom's super powerful. So I kind of never questioned that women were all powerful, just to know where I came from. Anyway, so I'm in the trees after COVID, during COVID. I'm like, oh my gosh, is the world ending? And I started bringing down objects from the mountain and making art. Actually, there's one right behind me. This is that artwork. And I put these little figurines on it. And I started to try to express how nature helps you gain perspective. Remember those early times in COVID when being out in nature was the only time you felt safe because you didn't want to be near people, but you wanted to be in nature and you wanted to breathe fresh air. And so I started making artwork that explored these ideas. As the first time I was making physical artwork in my whole like 25-year career at that point. So I started making this is that same pine cone at 16 feet. And and then I again was spending a lot of time in Muir Woods, and they have one of those tree ring historical timelines, which I always loved. I was like, oh my gosh, we're looking at time horizontally. And but during COVID, I have two daughters. I make a lot of feminist films. And my husband and I were looking at that tree ring, and I was like, wow, there's not one woman on that tree ring. It's all men. And it just hit me like in a flash, like, I need to make a feminist history tree ring. And I had never done something like that. But I just was like, I need to find the biggest piece of wood I can find. And I sanded it, and I had made all these films, and I was going to distill all of the history that I had spent years researching in my other films and just distill it down to 32 points. And the text was hand burned. And this is, I made up this word, dendrofemonology. So dendro meaning tree. Dendrochronology is the science of tree ring dating. Dendro means tree, chronology, time. So I call this dendrofemonology. And the very first fact I have on there is that 50,000 years ago, goddesses are worshipped in every part of the world because that's a much better place to start the story. Instead of starting with patriarchy and women from behind, let's start with more pagan and goddess worshiping cultures that worship trees and nature and women. So, but of course, then I go through all the things that have happened to women and nature, but also show the push and pull of progress. I think it's really important to note, although things seem difficult in the world, especially in America right now, it's a very difficult time to be American with the current administration. But if you look throughout history, whereas when the patriarchy happened, most women couldn't vote. Then slowly, in most countries, we can vote. We are in positions of leadership. So although it seems bad, if you look at history and go back 50,000 years and you see the push and pull of progress, it's actually helpful. Just as nature gives you perspective, going back into history gives you perspective. So this is what is the text on the actual timeline. You might not be able to read it on your screen here, but I will say that we end it with today and invite people. It's like an invitation. What we do today will matter what's next on the timeline. I brought it to Washington, D.C., which has that big phallic symbol. All the sculptures are super male. And it was very satisfying to have the feminist history tree right in front. We are here. We helped found this country. We are 50% of the country. Um, and I also have explored a lot of different subjects in my tree rings. I'm going to go quickly through these, but I use these when I bring it somewhere. I use it as a way to gather feminist organizations. Like if I was in Europe, the TreeSisters would absolutely be there talking about your work. Um, I'm going to go quickly. I also do a lot of other kinds of artwork that explore this idea of time and trees. Um, this is when we were in New York and we just were in St. Louis, and we're just about to have a big event in San Francisco. This is my husband, Ken, who will proudly say he's a feminist. He has a strong mom and was raised with two sisters. So he loves strong women and nature. And we did a show together that started in Los Angeles called Ancient Wisdom for a Future Ecology. He's a robotics professor at Berkeley and also an artist. And we co-wrote tree rings together. These are some snapshots of the trees. Um, but we did a history of science, and I'm going to go quickly through these so I can get to the Q&A. There's a new work I just made, which is a swing set, a gigantic swing set where the swings are tree rings. And I'm very excited. This back piece is the Tree of Knowledge. This is an image. Those of you in San Francisco, I really hope you'll come to the exhibit. We have a big event on March 7th that you'll be able to find out about. Okay, so this is the oopsie. This is the big event, March 7th, 2 to 5, Feminist Art in Action, bringing together organizations. And I'll be doing an online Zoom tour of the whole exhibition with Ken that will send in follow-up info. So I have a monthly newsletter I've been doing for 30 years called Breakfast at Tiffany's, where I highlight organizations like TreeSisters. I also talk about like what I'm working on, and I hope you'll all join. And you can, I'm sure they'll send a follow-up email, but you can find me here. And I think, oopsie, that I'm going to stop my share. And now, sorry, I hope that wasn't too long, but that was my career in a nutshell, in a nutshell on a tree.
Beautiful, Tiffany. Not too long at all, and I have 1,000 questions for you because you t touched on everything so so lightly there, and there is so much to say, I'm sure, about every single aspect of your career and all your achievements and your pieces of art and the monuments that you've created and people's reactions to them. So much is coming up for me, but before I dig in, I'd just love to invite everyone who has very kindly chatted in already and anyone else who hasn't yet. We have space for all your questions. So if you'd like to put any in the Q&A box in the
Yeah, it's fun for
webinar,
me to see. It
so
brings it to
many.
life. It's so fun to
Yeah,
see people
so
writing
many
in.
folks and so many from around you, so many from California.
I'm so
Um,
excited. Maybe we'll get to meet
yeah,
in person. But I mean, I want to bring this tree ring to Europe. So if
yes,
anyone has thoughts about that.
exactly. So yeah, anyone who's with
Yeah, if
us
you know of
joining,
any like
Helen.
museums or arts organizations, I would love to bring it. I would love to bring it to England. That would be amazing.
Definitely. So yes, please, Europe show up for us as well in the chat so we can bring Tiffany over because we're all dying to see your work in person and to meet you in person. There we go. Bristol, we're getting some European.
Listen, I mean, my ultimate goal, just so you know, I want to bring it to every patriarchal like monument around the
Yeah.
world and just be like, we are here. I mean, that is like I think what's so exciting when it's installed somewhere publicly is people kind of walk up to it and they're used to seeing the tree rings at the national. Do you have them? I mean, they're all over America, the tree ring timelines. Do you have those in
I
Europe
don't
too,
think
right?
they're so common. Someone please correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think I've seen them as much in the UK, but I could
That's
have just missed
interesting.
them. But we do definitely have,
Like
yeah,
in
ti
national
like ti
museums?
similar timelines. Yes, in museums more so. We
So
have
here at
less
like the entrance
national.
of every national
Yeah.
park, it's at the entrance and they're always so patriarchal. Oh, you don't have such huge trees. That's interesting. Oh my God, the Colosseum in Rome.
Yeah.
Yes, like every male, like I just it's anyway, so people walk up and they're like reading it, and you can tell they're just like their mind is being because they're so used to
Yeah.
seeing something else. It's like a cognitive dissonance, and then they smile, and it's like a reframe of history and the world through this tree. And anyway, so every male monument in the world is ultimately the goal. And I'm also a filmmaker, so I've been making this film that adds on each location every time we go. So I'm 55. By the time I'm 95, I want to have like compiled it in every major male
Everywhere.
monument area.
Yeah. And that's quite a task because yes, there are certain we are not short of patriarchal monuments around the world, so that's quite a task, Tiffany. People have suggested some places, so I think we're going to
I
find
know.
some.
Can I save this chat? I want to save this
Yes, we
chat.
will, and we'll follow up. If anyone has specific contacts for us to share with Tiffany, or that you can,
Exactly.
yes, please, we want to get Tiffany over here. So, oh my gosh, there's so much that you could say, that I could say and ask. And we've had a few questions in already, actually. So let me go to those. I want to make sure we get the audience's questions first. So, and one of them aligns with one on my list. How did you decide which historical facts to include in the art piece? And can you say more about the worship of goddesses in ancient times and how that relates to nature being Mother Nature?
Yeah. Okay. So how I decide what's on a tree ring, like it took me over a year to take all of my history from my feminist films, years of I've made feminist films for 25 years. So, and put them all in a Google Doc and then like add and subtract, add and that's the art form. Is
Mm,
that you're kind of wanting to skip through history on these important moments that both, well, again, starting with goddesses was a, you know, that was a very specific reframe of our history. I think women too often are feeling like we are trying to catch up or change. But if you think about it, actually we were there.
mm,
It's just a whole different story. And where you start a story and where you end a story matters. So I show the horror that 50,000 women burned as witches in Europe and America. 50,000 women, bold, courageous women, were burned at the stake. And I show that, but then I also show women getting the right to vote and women leaders. And because it's not all going backwards, it actually ultimately, in the bigger picture, we are in a much better place than we've ever been to get that perspective. And there's so much more work to do. So that is the art form. And I wrote these timelines in this latest exhibition with my husband, who's a professor, and like the history of science through mathematical equations, like consulting with all these mathematicians and scientists, what deserves to be on there. And that's the art. What do you put
mm,
on there? It's all subjective. And
mm.
that's also what I'm playing with is history is subjective. It's written by men. And let's completely mess with that. So and of course, these trees are not 50,000 years old. One tree ring I did about nature and ecology, it's a tree. I wish I would have shown it, but it's at the center dot. It says 4.6 billion years ago, the earth forms. And it's like this tree. And then at the very end, there's this big wiggle in the edge. And it's like humans arrive at the very end. And look at how much we've done. But
Mhm.
I ultimately believe, can we correct our ways? So I'm both playing with how old the trees are and what the subjects are. Okay, so that was your first question. And then the second one was about tech. What was the second one?
Can you say more, a bit more about the worship of goddesses in ancient
Yes.
times and how that
Okay,
relates to nature being Mother Nature?
so I have two daughters. I I look around the world right now and there are so many wars happening and they're all led by men. And I really do believe I do a lot of work to help women get elected, and a lot of my gatherings are about electing women leaders. And I truly believe if we had more women leaders who give birth in their bodies, raise a child with their husbands, hopefully, but do a lot of the work for that, we would not be killing people as the first mode of power control. So I think starting with goddess worship, a lot of goddess worship was tied to nature and the earth. And again, I was brought up with these stories as my father, who was a surgeon by trade, but wrote about goddesses. I mean, he told my sister and I we were more powerful than men. I mean, when people ask me like, why do you think you're able to do what you do? Like, you're pretty bold. I am pretty bold. I have a lot of courage. Well, it's because I had two parents. My mom who went back to school because she had kids and couldn't have a career at the beginning, but she went back to school to get her PhD in psychology. And her PhD dissertation was successful women and their female mentors. The reason she wrote that is she had no female mentors.
Mm.
She had no female mentors. And so think of having these two parents who grappled with female power and lack of and all these things. I think it made me think a lot about women as all powerful. And I think nature is so related. I mean, I actually think the reason why are there any men here? Not all men. Are there any men here? Probably not.
We normally
So,
have a few. We normally have a
okay,
few.
well, I
There
will
are
say,
definitely men in our Tree Sisters community, but
okay, but there are men that are not afraid of strong women. I
yeah.
ultimately think most men are because we make life because we can make life in our bodies and they can't. So they build these big phallic symbols and create wars and do all these things because they ultimately don't have the ultimate power of creation, which Mother Earth has as well. So I've made a lot of films on this subject. If you're interested in, at the end, we'll send some links, and there's a link to my films, which do what I'm doing in a very visual way in a film format. But yeah,
Amazing.
I think I
Um,
answered your question.
yeah, I hope so too. If you ask that question, and feel free to follow up in the webinar or
Okay,
the
wait,
Q&A, whoever asked that.
I just saw somebody ask, what switched it to patriarchy? Read
Great
my
question.
dad's book. The Alphabet
Yeah.
versus the Goddess is about what he tracked. He was a surgeon who operated on the brain and studied the brain. What he tracked was every time the alphabet was introduced into an ancient civilization, it kind of rewired how our brains work and how society worked. And that he tracked that literacy was the single event that kept changing goddess worship to patriarchy and male gods. But his book does it in like a much better way than I just said. Leonard Shlain is his name.
I think that answers Jules' question in the chat. I think she's just asked. And I think George, who said hello, I think you were saying hello because you're a man in the joining us today. So
Hi,
thank you very
George.
much. Hi,
And look
George.
at a lot of people know my dad's work. People come up to me all the time.
Amazing.
This is why I didn't change my last name, is because so many people know my dad's work. And
Incredible.
yes, I
And
highly
just
recommend it.
incredible, as you say, that you grew up in that space where that was your norm, where women's
Totally.
empowerment and women's leadership was your norm. And I think that's something that's so profound, kind of in contrast to, as you say, the norm of the narrative that we're often fed in
Yes.
patriarchy, is that
Yes.
we're not included on tree rings, we're not included in history, that
Right.
women's contributions are so overlooked, that the norm that we've been told, we've been, the power structures that be tell us is that women are not needed, are not involved, are not powerful. And so it's so interesting that obviously this is the space you've come into, having quite a different upbringing, quite a different narrative told to you. So I wonder, yeah, how do we go about shifting that narrative for everyone? How do we change everyone to
Well,
see that women are
I try to
powerful?
do it through my work. I really do. I mean,
Mm,
I try to do it through my films. I mean, I think if you watched every one of my films, they're trying to come from a place of like reframe and
mm,
potential and teaching history in a way that's unusual. I usually almost every one of my films I start with a shot of planet Earth. Whatever subject I'm going into, neuroscience, technology, let's zoom out. So I zoom out in space and time and everything looks different if you tell the story in a certain way.
mm,
And then these tree rings are almost like physical manifestations of my films. That's what's so exciting about them is like even this piece of art behind me, like what's so different from a film than a piece of art is a film, I've got to get you in a theater. I mean, I've had films
mm,
show in theaters and festivals and a lot of work getting people in a theater to watch a film in the dark and turn off their phones and be focused, right? Especially today. That
mhm.
wasn't always the case because I made films way before the iPhone came out, and that was a whole different experience. But but now more people can watch them on their computer, which they never could have watched before. But and then in an instant, in this piece of art with the little people on the pine cone, you can't really see it. I am going to give you a
So,
feeling that maybe some of my films try to do in 20 minutes or an hour. I'm going to try to in one experience. So what these tree ring timelines do is in a one visual experience, they try to do what I'm trying to do in my films for like an hour, 20 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes. And that's what's exciting to me. That's why I feel like in some ways all of my work has almost led me to this work, which is
mm,
I think you should see when people come to our museum exhibit with all these tree rings on the walls, they're just like, oh my God, people need nature more. They're so separated from nature. So it's very exciting to have arrived. And I've only been making physical art for the last 5 years. And it's interesting because collectors buy, we have editions of the sculptures that I make for people, and then there's framed prints. And they look, I think people having this history in their homes, like I think we're starved of nature
yeah.
and context and history. And it's very exciting because also films are very ephemeral. They see them in a theater, but I love it when somebody gets it for a building or for their home and like it's there and it's physical. I think I've moved. This is the irony, is that I started in the trees and then I did filmmaking, which used to be very physical. Then it became all digital. And then I was the webbies and I was like digital, digital. And now I'm totally back to sanding wood in the trees. I can touch everything. So it's been a journey for me to be back in the woods.
Beautiful. Yeah, beautiful cycle to that as well. And perfectly leads us on to a question from Paige. Can you talk more about your process wood burning on the tree rings? It feels like it could be very meditative and grounding, handwriting and reactivating the smell of the trees. I'd love to hear about this experience.
Yes. So I use a tool. So one of the most ancient art forms is like burning into wood, right? And so I use a pyrography tool is what it's called. And at first I worked with a female pyrographer because, it's like calligraphy. I mean, it's like anything. It takes a long time to figure out. And I was so nervous I was going to mess up at first. So at the first Feminist History Tree Ring, I only did the dots and I watched her. And actually the process is really interesting. So sometimes on these tree rings, I spent a year or two thinking about the text. Then I work with the designer to make it like work with the tree rings they all have different permutations. And then once that's done, it's printed on huge architectural paper, like thin, gigantic paper. It's on the tree, and I put carbon paper underneath it, and it's traced on the wood. So a lot of people say, "Well, what if you're going to make a mistake?" I've thought of that. Anyway, so then it's traced on the wood, and then it takes me a very long time, beautiful, meditative, slow time to burn the text in the wood. It's like a fire tip pen. It's plugged into the wall. It's red hot. Sometimes flames come from it, and I slowly, meditatively burn it. And I feel like I'm bearing witness to history. Like a lot of people, like collectors, will say, "Well, you have somebody else burn that in." I'm like, "No, that's why it's going to take you 2 months before you get it. I'm burning it in because I am bearing witness." It feels like a great privilege to like burn the history into the wood. And again, it's all salvaged wood. No wood is harmed in the making of this art. I'm only going to salvage lumber yards of like trees that have fallen down or fires, all the rest, storms. But I love doing the wood burning. In fact, I have been at the museum so much lately. I haven't been at my studio, but I'm excited to go back in because it's I turn off the phone, no music, nothing. I have to just be looking at it, thinking about exactly what I'm doing, which think about how few things you're just like, so I can't think about anything else, which I love.
Mm. I love that. I can imagine what it must be like with that smell and the
Oh, the smell's
moment and
amazing.
the concentration and the focus. And yeah, I think there's so much of that is missing in the way that we live now.
Right.
And as you say, those moments in nature can just be meditative on their own as well. I think we've lost those moments of calmness and focus. So yeah, maybe we should
Totally.
all take up dendrochronology was the original term.
Dendrofemonology, that's the official term, but I've made up a lot of, I really want to do something, I'm calling dendrocinema.
Oh,
Because I want to do what I did at MoMA in New York right before COVID. I only got to do once, but it was so exciting because I was like doing a live movie on stage, but I want to do something next that'll take some work, but with my tree rings and a stage and cinema. Because one of the things I didn't get to show is
amazing.
I recently projected one of my experimental films. I do normal documentaries, but I did do it in a kind of experimental art film about called The Female Gaze into History. And I projected it on a tree ring. And oh my gosh, it was so exciting for me because it like converged all the mediums I love into one experience. And this idea that trees are bearing witness to history took on this whole other visual component that I was like, oh my God, I have to do more of this. So,
Incredible. So definitely more to come. Tiffany on
yes.
that. Paige says, thank you for answering my question. Beautiful process. We'll head through some more questions and folks, please keep feel free to keep adding them into the Q&A. Tiffany, I don't know if you can see these, so I'm just going to read them out to you. So another question, have you listened to tree rings? I record old growth trees sing and have noticed snags and nurse logs sing. I do collaborations with musicians, dancers and storytellers outdoors while the trees sing. I use a device from Italy called Plants Play that converts the electric signals into notes. And she's offered her email address to follow up with you there,
Yes,
Tiffany. Any
I would
thoughts?
love, I have wanted to do something with that. I have a idea that could work really well with that idea. And I've seen online this tool, but I haven't, I would love to connect with you. So I'm hoping I can get this chat because I see this
We
all as
will,
great.
yeah, we'll take
Okay.
a note of everything
Yes, I
there.
would love to talk to you because I have an idea that would be great to connect with you about. Yeah.
I'm sure there are so many ideas floating around your head, Tiffany, because you're just, such a creative, inspired person. I wish I had an ounce of your
Well, wait,
creativity.
I have to say something about that. So all of my best ideas, you know, when they come, Saturdays when I turn off my screens. And
Oh,
this is a
yeah.
big note to people. And I track
Mm,
this because, you know, I started almost 17 years ago, 16 years ago, where actually had this very dramatic couple weeks in my life where I lost my father, who I was so close with, and our daughter was born. And it was like one of those life moments. I was like, how are
mm,
you living? You know, you could
mm.
die at any moment. And I was thinking, I'm on my screen too much. I
Yeah.
feel distracted. So that's when we started turning off screens one day a week. And I started track. I'm a big journaler by hand, and literally every one of the good ideas you've heard comes on a Saturday. And so I've made a lot of films about
Mm,
that too, about being in nature, turning off the screens, like basically. And I think when we're in nature, that's why they say some of your best ideas come when you're in a shower or doing the
mhm,
dishes or in nature walking, or because there's so many good ideas in your head, but we're stuffing our faces and minds all the time with screens. And that when you turn that off, as I do every week for a full day, I suddenly can hear myself think, and I can think without
mm,
outside influence. And it's an amazing thing. I highly recommend anyone trying it. And it's a full day that is, I think, the
mm,
secret sauce. That's why it's been around for thousands of years, a full day. And we're usually in nature on that day.
mm. And I think if you try not to, if for any, if you, you know, if folks try to do a day or try to do if you any time without your phone, I think you realize how much you automatically reach for it. Like so much of that now has become just ingrained again in the kind of way that we're living now has become so,
Totally.
all our dopamine receptors are built, have got primed for social
I
media
mean,
and
during the
on
week, I'm in that
constant,
cycle too. I mean, that's why,
yeah,
like, literally, this like gets closed in a drawer with my other
amazing.
technology. I'm actually working on this box, a beautiful wood box that to invite people to put it all in on Friday night. And like,
Love
because
it.
there's so much research, like out of sight, out of mind. Like, even that's why when you go to lunch with someone and everyone's got their phone on the table, no one's really paying
Hmm.
attention. Like, we have a phone off the table rule in my household, but like and at my film studio, when I had a lot of people, my art studio, I don't have a lot of people in there, but I used to no phones out visually because visually, it's just the visual
Hmm.
of someone's phone down. I
Yeah.
don't even care if it's off. You're thinking about the phone. What's on the phone? Who's trying to
Hmm.
contact me? What have I missed? So I'm a big believer, like out of sight, out of mind, get into the trees, put all that stuff away for a day.
Love it. Yeah. We all need more of that, Tiffany. I think if everyone here, and I certainly as well, will take, that's my goal for this year is less screen time, more time in nature. Okay, another couple of questions. One that is calling to me, have you ever been called to a certain tree?
Have I ever been what?
Called to a certain tree. Anne Marie, I'm going to
Yes.
ask you to, is that, yeah, does that resonate? Tiffany, go ahead.
Yeah, and in fact, yes. One of the parts of the exhibit in San Francisco is a piece called Acknowledge. And this is another example of using technology for good. So We've ingested, my husband's a professor at UC Berkeley, and his students have ingested all this historical knowledge and tree knowledge into chat and AI. And we invite visitors to leave the exhibit. We have these beautiful tape measures for them to take home. And if there's a tree you're called to or you really love, but you don't know the scientific name, you don't know how old it is, you don't know what it might have witnessed, we're inviting you to take a measurement of the circumference of the tree, take a photo of the leaf and the tree, and give us a couple reflections of why you appreciate that tree. Then with AI, it will come back to you with this beautiful 100-word tribute to the tree that tells you what the scientific name was, how old it is, and interlaces your reflections with the history of what's happened around that tree and give you this very beautiful image of the tree. So it's very fun. And all these people are entering. And we did this in LA when it was there and now in San Francisco. So who knows if we bring this whole exhibit to England or Europe, you could have these tree
Yeah.
tributes. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of trees. There's a tree in front of my house that's a bay tree that is just so beautiful. I mean, now, I mean, I can't go anywhere. If you can imagine, I'm just like when I walk anywhere, these trees are speaking to me, not just as trees, but as canvases and art ideas. And so I'm in a constant, I feel like I have a tree lens on. I actually did want to do this image of instead of my glasses, just tree rings, because that's the way I look at everything. Everything's a tree. I have this talk I'm working on about sexy trees that I'm gonna give at the museum in a couple months. I know it's hard to, but that's another talk for another time.
I'm sure, yes, I'm sure we'd have a lot of questions. I'm sure, no, yeah, definitely been called to trees, definitely found trees, been connected. Sexy trees is a new one for me, so I look forward to learning more about that, Tiffany. I'm sure they are definitely call them beautiful. Yes, sexy is interesting. Um, Joel has asked, which I think is an interesting, and there's a couple of comments about AI in the chat. I don't know if you can see those, Tiffany, but that we need AI to kind of look at trees and grow and connect with trees and some of the negatives around AI. I know again
Right.
that is probably a whole conversation that we could delve into another time. Did you want to say anything on
Yeah, I mean, I
those points?
think any technology, this goes back to an earlier, it's actually the media theorist Marshall McLuhan once said that technology is an extension of us as humans. It's just an extension of us trying to do more. And of course, there's a lot of negative that can happen with that, the extraction, the take, the consumer culture. But if you kind of say, okay, it's here, it's not going away. What are the positive uses of technology? You know, I come from a family of doctors, so medical research is very exciting to me. Also, this simple way that we're doing these tree tributes in this artwork acknowledge I just described to you, that is a way to use technology to really understand the tree in a new way that you might have appreciated and grasp its history. Maybe you'll take care of it more. Maybe you'll, want to plant more as you are all doing. So I guess I am of the school of thought. I mean, my husband and I both use technology. We're both critical technology, and then we both want to use it for good. So it's not going anywhere. And I think that is really important to acknowledge. So how can we shape it and use it for good? Because there'll be a lot of uses that we're not thrilled with. And it's certainly AI uses a lot of the environment and energy, and to be smart with your usage of it, all of those things need to be considered in our modern age. So I think I like invite everyone into that conversation.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's such a good point, and it's as you say, the balance and using it for good. And I think that so much of our ancestral knowledge and local community knowledge and natural connection with trees has been lost over years. That for me, I think if technology can be used for good to build more of a mass awareness around, as you say, tree species, and I've got an app that listens for bird calls and can tell me what birds are close by. I don't have that knowledge myself, and I don't have anyone that can share that knowledge with me locally. So technology helps to bridge that gap. And then you can go more old school and
Right.
you
Or
can
even the
read a
Zoom. I
book
feel
and
it. Yeah. I mean, I think I think with all of the things you have to be like, you know, how can we use this for good? Which
Mm.
again, this Zoom to me is like the ultimate example of
Yeah.
that. When I was in my 20s thinking the web, or no, when I was a teenager, people all over the world, one day their computers will be connected and they'll be connecting on something they all care about. So here we are all over the world, from all over the world, caring about trees and how we can highlight the importance of them more. This is to me the most beautiful example of technology right here, right
Mm.
now. And so I guess there's so much negative in the world, but there's so much beauty in it too. And I think that's what being in nature also does, at least for me, is I'm so in my head. And when I'm on my computer,
Mhm.
all the bad news and fear and anxiety. And then I go into the trees and I like exhale. And you see these big vistas and these old trees that have lived for thousands of years before you. They'll live thousands of years after you. And you just get this perspective that you lose when you're jacked into the negative part of the network, which I've
Mhm.
always wanted to call like amygdala media, because it's just
Mm.
trying to activate your amygdala, which is your fear center of your brain. That's the
Mm.
majority of media. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
It
got to
is.
keep pushing for good
You do. Thank you, Tiffany. And yeah, we wouldn't be able to bring, 70 people live with us today in
from all over the
person.
world.
So yes, this is, yeah, an absolutely brilliant use of this technology. Another question for you. What strikes you most about the link between nature and technology? We're staying on the technology theme. What are there other notable connections beyond the ability to connect and communicate like tree roots or mycelium? And can technology and nature work well together, or are they at odds? So touches a little bit on what we've spoken about there with AI.
Well, I think that I think that there are so many interesting ways to use technology, and I mean there it's an extension of our abilities. So, and it allows us to cross collaborate like a network. That
Mm.
is what the web is a network of minds. It is a network of minds, just like a network of mycelium. It's a network sharing information and shining the light, hopefully in areas that need it, bringing nutrients there. I mean, like it's very similar. So if we can think of technology more that way, and like how can we use it for good? So I see a lot of examples of that. I mean, I not only does California have the oldest trees, but I'm in San Francisco. It's like the heart of the technology industry. So it's this interesting place to be because we're surrounded by so much nature and beauty, and there's so much technology created here. But I think the role of, well, for my work, that's why I think it's been so cool to bring so many people from the tech world to the exhibition,
Mm.
because it's like, okay, let's go to the oldest technology in the world. You guys are talking about the newest technology with AI. Let's go into the oldest technology of time dating, which is dendrochronology. That's an ancient technology in the grooves of the wood.
Mm.
And that juxtaposition, I think, has been really interesting in the show because we're using AI in the show for some pieces. We certainly used it for research, and yet the manifestation is these old growth salvaged trees. So it's,
Mm.
I think, that combination that's interesting.
Mm. Love that we have there's a few more questions, but I think we're going to run out of time if I there's a couple that I'd like to give you space, Tiffany, just to talk a little bit about what you're up to at the moment and what you're up to this year. So do you want to answer that? And then if we've still got time for another question, I'll come back to the Q&A. I'd love to hear more about what you're up to at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm gonna share my screen again because if anyone want, like, I'm doing a lot of I see here, sorry. I'm really, well, first of all, I'm going to invite everyone to sign up for my newsletter because I
Mhm.
often not only will say what I'm working on, share the light on other people, but I will do like community experiments. So the next thing that I'm working on, so I told you about the tree, the swings, like,
Mm.
so originally I imagine these swings at the museum as being this really like, so there's three tree. Do you remember the swings that I show? I'm going to just show you the image here. Okay. So these are the swings, and they're called participatory pendulums because what's interesting about a swing, so tree rings are visualizing time, and so is a swing because it's like a pendulum on a clock, and it also is about gravity, and that's time is when somebody on your birthday says, "Happy trip around the sun." That's about gravity and time. So in many ways, swings are also visualizations of time. So on this tree ring here, it says the world before you were here. And then it says you were here, all on this double swing. And then over here it says you are here. And on this one it says you will be here, thinking about the future. And on the very end ring it says the world when you're no longer here. So I
Mhm.
imagined at the opening that I had a tree ring conductor, swing conductor, that people were just going to pick one swing and they were going to decide whether they wanted to go into the past, present, and future in their mind and think about who they were as a child, think about where they are now, how they want to be remembered. So that was the vision. Well, at the opening, it was like mayhem. There was hundreds of people. Everybody was on the swing, which including me. I was having so much fun swinging with my friends and asking them these questions. So then all of a sudden, I thought, wait a second. I thought about these swings all wrong. I am going to actually have conversations with people on the swing. So at the next event, which I'm inviting anyone, I see some local people, March 7th, we're
Yeah.
having a big feminist art and action event. I am going to make it like a an experience where I invite people to swing with me. And I will ask them about who they were as a child, who they are today, and how they want to be remembered, and make it like a conversation. It has such joy in it because when you're on a swing, like you remember being a child swinging, there's something about moving is so powerful. And even looking at the artwork when you're on that swing is so much fun. So I would like to, like I've done with the Feminist History Tree Ring, take this swing set, which is called Gravitas, the participatory pendulum. I'd like to take it to other locations and swing with people and have these kind of philosophical conversations about their lives. So that's kind of a new thing I'm working on. That's
Incredible how that's adapted and how, how that's changed what you envisaged for it and actually how when you introduce humans into the mix, that how they used it and how
exactly. I had
related
this
to
one
it.
thing in my mind. Oh, this is how this piece is going to work. And then they
Yeah.
completely add humans into the mix and they made it so much more joyful. Of course, I knew riding on a swing was joyful, but I did not expect the joint joy of talking to someone when you're on a swing set. We were laughing so
Yeah.
hard and it was so much fun. Fun is good. And there's something,
Fun
oh, and
is
the
good.
seat, when you're normally on a swing, most people said, I haven't been on a swing since I was a kid. But
Yeah.
if they have like a plastic swing, there's chain, but this is all like, this is we sanded it so it fits well on your tush, and this is rope. It feels so good to be on this wooden swing. Anyway, so
Oh,
that's like my next thing I'm gonna be figuring out. Move it
amazing,
across the
Tiffany.
country or world.
Absolutely amazing. And I hope that, yeah, all the attendees here that are local can make it out to you and experience that firsthand because I'm very jealous and we're going to work our hardest to try and get you over to
Well,
Europe and
I'm
England.
going to be doing an online Zoom
Amazing.
tour with Ken. I think you'll find Ken really interesting because his mind is totally different from mine, and yet when we come together, we're like making these things that neither of us could have made separately. So we'll be doing a tour together at the end of March, which it's a Zoom like this, but we'll be
Amazing.
walking around the exhibit talking about the work.
Yeah, sign us up at TreeSisters, and I'm sure some of our community will want to join you there as well.
Great.
So it sounds amazing. There are so many more questions. I'm so sorry to everyone who we didn't get to because we only have 2 minutes, so I'm going to start closing. But there is also so much that I could ask you, Tiffany. I feel like we've only scratched the surface, and there is so much that we could talk about and about gender and nature, and some of the questions were coming in about the connection. And yes, maybe there's more to explore. Maybe we might need another session one day to dig into to some more of
I'm
that.
so happy I love knowing Tree Sisters in the world doing such important work. The name itself is like, makes me smile.
Yeah.
And I think words matter. As you can see, a lot of my artwork has words in them, but Tree Sisters, it just brings me such like warmth and happiness to even say it, to see it, and then to see your community come to life on the Zoom with so many incredible people. It's just, Great.
Well, thank you so much. And we are just so appreciative of your support and your enthusiasm and just for spending this time with us today to share with everyone your knowledge and your art and your process. And I hope that everyone leaves today feeling really inspired to spend more time in nature, to think about the narratives that we're told and question some of those narratives and turn technology off for at least a day a week. I think there's lots
And
of
listen,
takeaways.
yes, I promise you it will make your life better. It's the single best thing I've ever done in my life is, and that's why I wrote that book. I was like, this, anyone can do it. And
Mm.
it's so, people think it's hard. It's so easy to do. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I got my mind back. I got my soul
Yeah.
back. So
Yeah.
recommend it.
Amazing. I look forward to that. And Tiffany, you are so inspiring and thank you for your advocacy and your passion and everything you're doing to create change in the world. It means, yeah, it means so much. And we're just so grateful for you being here today. So from myself and all of Tree Sisters, wanted to thank Tiffany and all of you for being here with us today. We do hope you enjoyed the time that we've had together and feel inspired. We please look out for recordings at next week and feel free to share it with friends, colleagues, family, tell everyone. If you haven't already, please sign up for our newsletter. We'll also share the links to Tiffany's newsletter. From ours, you can receive news about our impact, events, campaigns, our restoration work, and updates and stories. You can also follow us on social media. If you already support our work and that's why you're here, then I want to say an extra special thank you to you. And if not, and you feel inspired to give to support Tree Sisters, there should be a QR code on your screen. You can scan to donate or click the link in the chat. We need your support to continue this work, but we need everyone to stand up together to protect and restore nature. So if you can't give, then even just making a small commitment to protecting nature in your own life is wonderful if you take that as a takeaway. So a final thank you from me to Tiffany and to all of you for being here. Tiffany, I hope to see you in England very soon.
We're gonna make that happen. We're
We,
gonna do a
we
tree
will.
sister something. I'm gonna come meet you and give you a hug in person.
Oh, we'll find a way to make that happen. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone
Okay,
for
thank you,
being here.
everybody.
We'll see you soon. Bye.